Alrighty. So to begin, if you are clicking from the short that's attached to this, then you'll know why we're here. But for those that are just popping in, we're responding to this clip right here.
Doc, what do you think about the notion of holding parents criminally responsible for their children's behavior?
I said it earlier. I said it's circumstantial. I think that if a parent is neglecting their child of what's needed for them to be mentally stable and healthy and be in a state of mind where they can actually, operate as a citizen who isn't impaired, then I think that that parent who's providing those resources, should not be have consequence or discipline. But again, if you're neglecting your child in any manner, I think there should be consequences to a parent, no matter what, if there's neglect at the hands of a child. But y'all know how I feel. I feel gentle parenting makes for a child. I think that there are rules and in their structure, and there's a thing called boundaries, and boundaries have been proven to create healthy relationships, not just between people, but for that person within themselves. And if we raise kids with no boundaries and no structure and discipline, they go out into the world and they don't understand that, and they end up being in battles, and they end up actually having a lot of issues with law enforcement. They end up being the child that's disruptive in school and class because they don't understand that the world doesn't revolve around them. There's a big world that they are able to participate in, but they cannot be the center of attention to everything. And so I'll end on saying that what I do agree with is that every child is different, and that every child may not necessarily need the same level of discipline, but every child does need structure and discipline in order for that child to grow up and be an adult who understands that this is the law of the land, this is how life works, and successful people, not just only externally, but internally, what they do carry at the nucleus of who they are is discipline and boundaries.
If gentle parenting creates gentle children, sign me up. I definitely want to create more gentle adults, especially men. Hold on, everybody, especially men.
You are
My God, are you kidding?
Hold on, guys.
Hold on, guys. That's what we need in the world is more gentle men who understand.
You're very gentle, and it comes at an angle that doesn't always work for people.
Let's just stop and go back. Because I'm wrapping the show and you're interrupting me.
First of all,
this is what we spent a whole meeting on this.
First of all, Toure,
first of all, why don't you let me wrap the show? I'm ending the show.
First of all,
what is the point of interrupting me?
First of all,
we're getting out of here. Like, what is the point? What is the point? It says go to host up
when you're talking to me. Lower your fucking voice when you're talking to me, because you're acting very, very gentle, very soft, and very feminine. And this is the problem. Toure, you talk to your wife like that. You don't talk to me like that. I am not your wife. You don't talk to me like that. I'm not your wife, gentle. I'm not your wife, softy. Don't talk to me like that. You talk to your wife like that, not me. Toure, talk to your wife like that. Do not talk to me like that. That is not how you That is not how you professionally approach me. Don't fucking talk to me like that. Check.
Frank and Ariva, I apologize.
Check yourself. You don't talk to me like that.
Talk
to your wife like that.
Doc, hold on.
Shut the fuck up talking to me like that. That's what you do. That's what you do. You better tap into your gentleness and real quick.
Are we ready?
I've been ready. Been ready.
Ariva, Frank, you guys ready?
Yep.
You ready to wrap this up?
Yes, as I was doing.
And then we'll speak off camera. Here we go.
We always ask, when should a parent be held responsible?
And so what I want to put in perspective is that this is a story that has been developing over time, right? So while the internet has a bit more of an instantaneous sort of reaction, it is developing, and we're seeing more and more of Cheyenne Bryant or Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. So let me do this. I think that it's fair, like I'm going to call her Dr. Cheyenne Bryant or Dr. Bryant and stuff like that interchangeably, but understand that this is not me saying that she is indeed a doctor. This is actually like a version of a stage name. And I think that that is fair or legitimate, right? Like if I can call Cardi B and not Belcalis, I understand doctor has a bit more of an implication, but understand in context in this video, Dr. Bryant is a stage name and not indeed the representation of a doctor. So if I call her Dr. Bryant, it's just out of respect. It's the HR in me. All right. So let's get into how we got here. This story, again, has been developing over time. It's not something that happened and we're just coming to this conclusion. I think very early on, Corey Holcomb was the person that was pointing out that she's not really a doctor. But I could be honest that I'll be damned if I was standing behind a Corey Holcomb to kick somebody else's back in. I don't like him. Does not mean that he was actually wrong about this situation, but that's another story for another day. It has been a conversation, it's been a point of contention, but we're going past that. Everybody is having this dialogue about why is she calling herself a doctor, and it bubbled up because of Dr. Raquel coming in and saying that it's important for people to know the difference between a coach and a therapist, and understanding that licensure is not just for billing insurance. And I will say that as a person that is doing developmental psych, it is very important for us to understand the significance of people needing therapy and not washing therapy down as just an opportunity to monetize. And as a person, again, in grad school for this kind of thing, there is so much of our culture that normalizes things that create adverse trajectories for us. And this is actually the crux of the conversation between Cheyenne and Toure in this particular episode, the dialogue around gentle parenting. So, first and foremost, I want to say I am just a grad student, right? Like, I have not finished my coursework. I am not so studied that I am an expert in any kind of way. I'm just telling you what the books say. Um, I've also done a lot of the readings and things like that around, gentle parenting. And a lot of times people mix up gentle parenting with passive parenting and, discipline that requires like physical hitting with authoritative parenting and not knowing the difference between the two. And the reason that most psychologists are not going to support it is because a lot of the data does suggest that most kids are not okay when they get beaten by their parents. But more importantly, that you can't predict the outcomes, right? It's the notion that there's some stress that is good, that's positive for most people, but we can't measure or give a universal thumbnail on what stress level is appropriate. And usually, if you say things like, oh, it's fine to hit your kids, people will literally be kicking their kids through walls. And that's a whole nother discussion for another day, but I digress. Um, Me personally, I'm not really, not at this point in my life. I don't see the point in really hitting kids. And it's really on the basis that if I'm outside in the street and I could, outside of science, like science aside, outside in the street, like there's certain women like of certain body sizes that I won't hit because I feel like it's unfair to hit them. Don't ask me to look at somebody that's 25% my body weight and body size and ask me like if I'm gonna beat them up because they don't listen. I'm not that emotionally dysregulated that I feel a need to pop on a kid, especially when if I talk to them a certain type of way, they usually tighten the fuck up. I just don't feel like it's necessary. And I will also say, as a kid that's been beat and watched a lot of my friends like in childhood get beat, like beatings used to get so bad, niggas used to literally watch or listen to kids screams through fucking concrete walls in the hood, fucking from the windows and all types of stuff. And you know what happened? A lot of us don't deal with our parents the same way. So do with that what you will. Don't say like, oh, I'm not one of your little friends, and then be surprised that when your child is an adult, they're not your friend because you have set them on course to not be friendly with you. That's all I'm saying. And worst of all, I've watched parents that grew up with their parents getting beat by their parents, getting talked to crazy by their parents, not have relationships, but then don't differentiate that like, yeah, it's the behavior of hitting your kids that usually onsets this kind of disconnect. But again, I digress. But this is an important part of the discussion because the next thing I'm gonna, point out to you, kind of make you laugh. I hope it makes you laugh. Did you ever see what Cheyenne Bryant's dad looks like? I'm gonna show you a picture. Take a look. Have you seen Toure? This is what he looks like. Did you notice something? You see, when I watched this last video of her, this was not someone that was defending an ego or a title to me. This was a person that was triggered because she was angry. Remember when she said, tap into your gentleness when you're talking to me? And she wouldn't let it go. She wouldn't come down off of it because if she was convicted in her position, she would have stepped away from it, right? Like at least. I would think. But something about that moment, she was dysregulated entirely. And when I looked, God whispered, he said, look at her daddy. And I went and I took some screenshots and took a look at her daddy. And I feel like we have a new picture now. You see, what happened is that Cheyenne is dealing with a collection of issues, not just one or two, or not just the preservation of an identity to the public, but she is preserving a sensitivity, probably the byproduct of internalizing being hit by your parents. Just saying. The perception of perfectionism, which we often see come out of children that have been hit. This is how come there are some people that advocate for it, because, you know, PTSD, one of the symptoms of PTSD is perfectionism. Again, an implication that stress can create good products, you know, similar to what they said about us during slavery, right? Stress puts people in the right direction of productivity. Cheyenne was having another discussion on the Dear Future Wifey podcast. And here is what she said.
We were talking and I said, I'll be engaged or married within a year or two.
That's what she said.
The last thing you said to me about that was, Cheyenne, so you mean to tell me you just gonna say you can be married in 2 years, just gonna happen? And I said, yep. And he said, okay. I refreshed Instagram and this Negro then took my manifestation. So now I got a problem with you. When we done taping, square up. God, you delivered it to the wrong address.
Dr. Cheyenne Bryant is in the building. You said that no matter what, you're going to marry a man that doesn't have kids.
Yes. I look at blended families as something that can work and can be a blessing. My dad has 6 of us by 5 women, but it's a lot of work. And 2, it is definitely a polyamorous relationship, not polygamy, 2 different things. People like to say, no, it's not. Mm-hmm. Watch this. A family is me, you, and a child. Yep. And when she comes in, guess what? We're blending her with us. I'm not doing it. I want to be able to break this dysfunctional pathology of these broken homes and broken families within our culture and community. And I don't want to just be preaching about it. I want to be able to say, listen, mom came from blended, but I made a very, very cognitive decision to do it differently because I want to make sure I broke this pattern, and mama did. And when it happens, I only want it on his time. Yeah. So if his time ain't right now, baby, you can keep it. I have mastered celibacy. I have mastered not having casual sex, which I've never done anyways. I'm not sitting around here, and I say this, excuse my language, as some horny toad that just needs something to hump on. I'm a woman who's very in tune with how to regulate my emotions, my appetite, and my body.
A lot of women you see on social media be like, we have needs. When I hit a certain age, hormones going crazy.
Oh, they're going crazy. They're going crazy. They firing off right now. I'm trying to sit on this thing now.
So my question is, you said I've learned how to master it. How have you mastered it?
This clip outlines that her daddy was the same Rolling Stone that she got on when she was talking about Nick and Cam. And this is how come it's valuable. Life experience is valuable because what she said is not now incorrect because she's not a doctor. It is correct on the basis that this aligns with her personal experience. But what she also understands is that her personal experience don't really matter because that's how her daddy raised her. And I mean this with respect. I got to be careful because her dad has since passed away. So I want to be conscious of that. There is an important notation in that though, because she's the firstborn out of all of them kids. And I figured that out because, you know, she talks from her experience. Her wisdom is not coming from a textbook. Her wisdom is coming from her life. So if you listen closely, you pick up all of the little nuggets of her experience in the rhetoric that she shares. One of the things that she said was that her dad was hard on her in this post. But her father being difficult with her yielded her perfect fruit. Something else that I noticed inside of the recreation of her dynamic with her parents was the importance of attraction.
Fine. Look at my daddy. My mama and my daddy fine.
Which is why whenever it get a little hot in the kitchen, when people are talking about her, the first thing she'll do is put herself out there physically. Because when it's all said and done, I'm still bad. I ain't mad at her. But you see that one of the things that her father said to her that she felt was a valuable repost was that you look like one of my kids. And that was important to her. So much so that she reposted it as gloating. And then I knew something else was happening and something must be broken, and there's some kind of tension or strain inside of this dynamic, because when she posted this picture of her and her dad to wish him a heavenly birthday, she had a sister that commented underneath the post. But the sister didn't acknowledge Cheyenne. And this is what the sister looks like. And notice the caption that the sister put underneath this post. And if you were to ask me my learning something new about developmental psych brain, I would say that these young women were being conditioned by a man that centered himself and thought that this was normal or expected. And that their grandiosity is rooted in their ability to be valuable to the partner that they choose or they end up with. So what I'm saying is that what I'm seeing in Cheyenne, or Dr. Bryant, if you will, is the notion that Toure and his discussion during that show, it wasn't just about disagreeing on the point. It's that Toure represented the version of parent that she could not get. Toure is a guy that not only decides not to put his hands on his children, he married the woman that he had children with. Cheyenne didn't have that same experience. This is also why, if we go back to a part in that clip, she said, you could talk to your wife like that, where now the wife is just being disrespected and catching strays just off GP. But that's also because she's a woman that represents what she perceives that her mother couldn't be. Because I believe she has not had the opportunity to reconcile that you do not have control over what people do. And it's not about if you're good enough, if you're bad enough, and so on and so forth. There is a reality that if you're just not a certain sort of person, you're just not going to do certain things. I.e., if you, as this perfect picture of a woman, can make a choice to not be with a certain sort of man, then a man is equally responsible for making that sort of decision. But when your daddy decided that he was going to pick and choose who he wanted and leave seeds wherever he felt like it, that should have been an indictment on accounting his personality and his characteristics, what he valued. And I say this with respect, his level of selfishness in leaving his seed from place to place. But you hold him to this standard of grandeur that can't be true based on your rhetoric around what you said about Cam and Nick. And so while you was talking crazy to them, which amplified your virality, you was also talking crazy to the guy that kind of looked like your daddy, if you ask me. Because he says he wants to love on his children without having to hurt them. And that was the trigger in my purview. Seeing somebody that looks like your parent, act nothing like your parent, makes you have to confront this idea that the person that you've held to this high standard of greatness ain't as great as you thought they were. Worst of all, it crashes on the fallacy of what your perceived perfection must mean if the ideologies of your dad are not valuable on the basis that he wasn't as good as you present him to be. There is something about that. Listen, and I say this with love. My dad is not a perfect person. And one of the hardest experiences of my life was realizing how imperfect he actually is. But the difference is, I figured that out in my 20s before I decided to go off into life and do all of these different things. And so now I love my dad in his imperfections. and not because I perceive him as a perfect being. No, that don't make no sense. Because that is the honest part. My ability to be introspective also makes me capable of being accountable for how I show up, how other people show up, and saying like, yeah, this could work, it can't work. I want to do this, I don't want to do this, and stand in the truth of circumstance and not in the fallacy that I am creating. And so inside of that, this is why I believe she calls herself a doctor. Not because it's necessary, right? Because we have a bunch of folks that aren't doctors, and she's even gone ahead and said it. We have Oprah, Tyler Perry. Michelle Obama is not a doctor. She holds a JD, but not a doctor. Sure, she has an honorary doctorate from a bunch of places. Lisa Nichols, we have plenty. We have an enormous amount of innovative. We can't forget Yanla. We can't forget Auntie Tab. These are not people that are claiming to be doctors. But there was something important to her about differentiating herself from the masses. Because the need to be perfect at that point is starting to corrupt the identity that would be sufficient, right? So you can't stand in being just Cheyenne, because being just Cheyenne didn't keep Daddy from going and having more kids with other women. Sorry. Being just Cheyenne on all of these different court shows, all of these different reality shows did not keep you at the front of the line, but it was being Dr. Bryant, getting your belt on the behinds of the Nick Cannons and the Cam Newtons. Those were the moments, right? But now that you're being asked, or she's being asked to show up in all of these different places, we're watching the cracks in the fallacy. Because the person that tried to be perfect as a child is trying to take that same skill set into adulthood, because you don't believe in the reality that who you are, imperfections and all, is still valuable to tell a story. Imperfections is equally valuable, right? Diamonds are not perfect circles. It's not what happens. Gold does not show up in a perfect circle. It's not what happens. There's textures, there's grit, there's layers, there's bangs, there's bruises. And that's okay. But what I think happened is that in her developmental process, she learned to present perfection so that she can constantly captivate the attention, compel the attention of her dad, while he was going and doing what a man of his caliber might decide to do. Make babies all over the place. And in competing for attention amongst her array of siblings from an array of women, she felt like that strategy would be important when she was competing with our other activists, life coaches, and so on that exist in the space. Because her calling herself a doctor created some standout on her. The idea that she was this attractive, this pretty, and this intellectual, it did something different. It did something different. And now we deal with the fallout. And I think it's important for us to discern the difference between a person that has a great story to tell versus the person that is a licensed professional. And I also want to encourage people, do not lose sight in the value of things like therapy. There are so many things that we do out of habit that we don't actually pay attention to, that we don't even realize. As a matter of fact, I'll do a little short of how behavioral science works, like on a neurological level, where we have plasticity and neural functions. There are certain things that are valuable, and there are other things not so much. You could have a coach that could help you through a season, but you definitely should consider a therapist that's going to help you clean up your lifetime behaviors and how you can deal with life on your own, being cognitively aware of your emotional triggers. Because I'm sure if she had a therapist, she would know to be careful around somebody like Toure. But that's just my humble opinion. I'd love to know what y'all think. But in the meantime, I'll talk to you later.